everybody, and welcome to the Quiet Bookworm Plays with Yarn podcast. I'm Hannah, and I'm a Jersey girl living in Liverpool. First things first, at the top of the episode, of course, everything that I talk about will have links in the description box below, as well as links to my Instagram, Ravelry, and the Ravelry group page for this podcast. Also, at the top of the episode, apologies for last week. I went climbing, thought I was only going to go for an hour, ended up going for 4 hours, came home, took a shower, walked out of the bathroom, and it was pitch black. Because that's what happens at 4 o'clock in the afternoon here now, because it's winter. Well, almost winter, but pretty much winter. So, starts getting dark at weird times. Today we actually have fairly good lighting despite how cloudy it is outside. But that's that. So, whips, because I have no finished objects because my knitting mojo, I don't know what's up with it. It'll be there for about 2 hours and I'll just power through some like sections of things. And then it just disappears for like 3 days. And I sit down and I can only do like 1 row on something. Or like I pick something up and I do a row and then I put it down and I do another row on something else. And I'm not really sure what's going on. I think it's just something with how I've been feeling overall with being in graduate limbo, as well as not having a career yet, as well as actually knowing when I'm leaving Liverpool now. And I'll get into that at the end of the episode. I'll talk more about that later. But right now, I'm going to talk about the Pumpkin Spice Mittens by Ellie of Scandier Knits. They are technically living in this. I've just had them out because I was looking at them. This is my unknown project bag from the pop-up wool show in Port Sunlight. I really wish I knew who had made it. I just was not paying attention that day. And there's no tag on it. People, when you make stuff, put tags on them. Put tags on them. Anyways, this is where I'm at. So last time I showed you these, I had just finished the thumb gusset on the right mitten. I think that's the right one. Yeah, that's the right mitten. And had just finished the cuff on the left mitten. I had decided to do these congruently, well, somewhat congruently, mostly because I had to use a 2mm needle for the cuff. And that's what my socks were on at the time, so I had to take my socks off the needle, do the cuffs, put my socks back on the needle. So I just was like, I'll just do both cuffs and then I'll just kind of work congruently, also because these were 50-gram balls, and technically that's all you need for fingering weight, but it is like just at that minimum requirement for the yarn. And I am getting a funny gauge, technically. I measured my gauge, and according to the pattern, I should be getting basically a large man size mitten. But I have tiny Barbie hands, and these are fitting really well. And I haven't blocked them, so they might stretch out a bit, but even so, they're not going to stretch out that much to be able to fit a large man's hand. So I don't really know what's going on. Maybe I miscounted. Who knows? I'm not very good at math. But I am just about to start the decreases for the hands, and I had said originally I'm going to work congruently. I'm going to do the thumb gussets, and then I'm going to do up to this point, and then I'm going to switch back and get up to that point on these and switch back. But I think I'm just going to finish this mitt and go back to this one. There's really no point in taking these off the needles and doing this one. I've got, I think, 14 rows left. So that's, yeah, I'm just gonna go with that. I'm gonna finish the mitt, not the thumb, do this, and then do both thumbs at the same time. So yeah, give you a little bit of a close-up. The yarn that I'm using is from Arctic Knitting. This is her 100% lamb's wool yarn. The white isn't undyed, it's just the natural 100% lamb's wool. And then the brown is, I'm gonna butcher the name, but it's Reva Enka, which translates to Fox's Widow. It's based off of, I think, a fairy tale, a Norwegian fairy tale, or folklore. Let's go with that word, folklore. But it's such a gorgeous, gorgeous color. And let me see, there's a couple of like really nice, yeah, that's probably the best spot to see it. There's some really, really nice, brighter reds here amongst the brown. And so it's just working out perfectly. And also, I have to say, this color is basically the color of my pumpkin pie when I make my pumpkin pie. I'm so excited. I'm going to Minnesota for Thanksgiving, and I am going to make all of the pumpkin pie because I love pumpkin pie. But yeah, that's this one. So this one says I heart PSL, and I think this one is just gonna have a heart on the cup. And then there's a little pumpkin at the top of the fingers right here. And cheeky little pumpkin in the thumb gusset. I love it. It's so cute. It's adorable. But yeah, I have to say, and I know people talk about Ellie's Ellie's patterns a lot, but she does such a wonderful job at making the patterns accessible and easily understandable. I had never done mittens before, and then I did her Ulickfeld mitten, which was her mystery knit along last year for the Christmas season. Really wish I could do this year's, but I don't have any yarn for it. So, not happening, apparently. But the Ulickfeld mittens were my very first mittens, and they came out really well for first colorwork mittens. And these are coming out even better after I've done a few things of colorwork to get more practice. And her patterns are just easy to understand, easy to read. There's so much information in them, and I really, really enjoy that, especially because she is Norwegian and she says a lot in Norwegian patterns that they don't give you, they just expect you to know how to do things. And I think she's brought that traditional Norwegian design into her patterns, but made them understandable for beginners and advanced knitters. So I think that's really fantastic, and I really enjoy her patterns, and I would love to buy one of the Selby Mitten clubs, but I gotta get a job first. So yeah, that's the pumpkin spice mittens. I am knitting them on 2.5 millimeter, which is US 1.5 carbons, which I love. I don't know, I don't talk about it as often, I feel, but I pretty much exclusively use wooden needles because I don't like how the metal feels. It hurts my hands. And so the wooden needles work amazingly, but when I get down to this size, I do snap them. I've snapped quite a few. And then I forget who told me, but somebody in one of my knit groups, I think the one in Hawaii, had said that the carbons are really nice because they have the feel of wood, but they don't snap at this small of a gauge. And so I've been using them ever since, and they're amazing. So, my 2 cents there. The next whip that I've been working on is my socks, and I've gotten quite a bit of ways with them. So I think this is where I was last time, and I've done about 2 inches now. I have decided I am going to do an afterthought heel. I would like to learn how to do an afterthought heel, and these are kind of like, I'm using these socks as kind of just figuring out what works for me with socks. I know that 2 up, toe at a time socks works the best, but I'm not sure about how, like, what kind of heel. I've done the Fish Lips Kiss heel. I've done standard short row heels. I've not done a heel flap yet, but I'm not sure. Most of the time, toe up socks don't do them, I think. And so I'm just kind of experimenting with these. So I'm going to do an afterthought heel, and I've been debating whether I want to do the cuffs in this color as well, because I know I want the heels in this, but I don't know how much yarn I'm going to use. So I might kind of put them on stitch holders or waist yarn, and then do the heel, and then see how much I have left over for the cuff, or just do the cuff in this color. So talking about the yarn, this is Mothie and the Squid. I can't remember the name of the colorway. It's one of the moths that I know. Sorry. It's a really, really lovely deep maroony purple. It's more purple than maroon. It's coming up more maroon on the camera, but it's definitely more purple in light in actuality. And this one is Volan Vine Yarns on a Footsie base. The color weight is Brain Freeze, which I think was one of her one-of-a-kinds, or Strange Brews. At the time she wasn't calling them Strange Brews, but they are Strange Brews. And I've got my sorting hat from Opus Yarns. And again, these are on carbons. These are the 2mm carbons, and they're amazing. I've not had any kind of like bending or threat of snapping on them, which is fantastic. And I'm not always careful with my needles. I do kind of just toss them about, and I've sat on needles, or last year I snapped a pair of needles because I was trying to, it was when I was living in my dorm room in Hawaii, and in my dorm rooms, because there's absolutely no storage space, I put the bed like as high as it can go, and store everything underneath. And because of that, I do have to like actually climb onto the bed rather than just like sit down onto it. And so I was climbing onto the bed, and I had the needle in my hand, and I went down and it just snapped. And I was so annoyed, because it was the project I was working on was actually a knitting project for a class. We weren't allowed to do a paper. We had to do something other than a paper, and I had decided that I was going to do knit a monk seal and then put a little tag on it, kind of like the Beanie Babies have, with like 10 fun facts about monk seals, and it can be used as like a learning tool, which actually I think it was given to Noah to use as an educational tool for like little kids. I think that's what happened to it. I don't really know if they still use it. I might email them and ask them about that. But yeah, and these live in my Edinburgh bag. I feel like I use this bag all the time, and it's getting really kind of grungy, and I need to wash it, but I'm afraid of putting it in the wash and then this coming off. I'm not really sure what to do, because it does have, I don't know what that is. That's something that was in John's bag. Yeah. And have one last whip. This whip was something that I started ages ago, but had to restart because I started ages ago, let it sit for a month, tried to come back to it, and completely forgot how to read the pattern. It is a brioche pattern, so you do have to read it slightly differently than normal, and I just I thought I was doing it right, wasn't, tried to fix it, totally failed, and just in a fit of rage tore it all out. And I've decided to restart it. It is the Residence Shawl by Lavanya Patrickella. And this is where I'm at. I think I've only done about 10 rows. I've really not done much at all. But it's a syncopated broken rib brioche, so it's quite complicated, and I've only ever done brioche in the round, so I forgot just how to do it. The yarns that I'm using, the blue is Stranded Dye Works. It's a one-of-a-kind that I got at Nottingham Yarn Expo. Not the one that just happened, the one before. I really wanted to go to the one that just happened, but the trains were ridiculous to get there from here. It was like, I would have spent more time on the train getting there and coming back than I would have spent like actually at the event. And it would have been like 70 pounds just for the trains. I was like, ugh. It's because it was on a Sunday. They really shouldn't do it on a Sunday. They should do it on a Saturday. The trains aren't normal. But yeah, it's a one-of-a-kind colorway, and it's on her singles superwash merino base. And then the golden one is a golden syrup from Knit Cosmic Strings that I got at Edinburgh Yarn Festival. And they're lovely. They're absolutely amazing. That's what that one looks like, and that's what that one looks like. They're so pretty. I wish I had gotten this done like ages ago, but it's something that I really have to sit down and think about when I work. I can't really work on it at knit night, and I think when I was working on it, I was also working on my Venturesole, and I wanted to get that done so that I'd have it to wear during the winter, the fall and the winter, and it's been amazing. I love it. I wore it walking when I went to Wales, and I was so comfortable when I was at the top of the mountain. It was really windy and cold. And that I am keeping in my Doctor Who bag from All About Yarn, and this I got at the Leeds Yarn Festival. This is kind of like my festival project. Everything I've got except for the needles I got at one of the like 3 or 4 yarn festivals I've been to this year. And so yeah, that's that project. I don't have much else to say about it, just because I got quite far last time, but again I messed up, and I'm not that far this time. So I guess it's on to Talk Story. So I mentioned at the beginning of the episode that I do know when I am leaving Liverpool, and unfortunately I will have to leave Liverpool at the beginning of January. This is because I am here on a student visa, and my student visa expires at the end of January. So I have to leave no matter what in January. I have been applying to jobs here, but the visa requirements for non-EU members are quite insane, especially for somebody who's just graduated and is looking for an entry-level job, and not somebody, I think it's definitely much easier for somebody who's been working for 10 years and has like fellowships and like in professional development stuff. And yeah, no, the requirements are ridiculous, are really difficult to meet for somebody who's just coming out of school and doesn't have the experience. And so unfortunately I've not been able to find something that will allow me to stay in the UK, which I'm both okay and not okay with. Like, I understand. I've loved my time here. It's been really enjoyable, and I don't really want to leave, but I'm gonna have to. This means that I'm not going to be going to any of the, or most of the yarn festivals that occur in the UK. I want to go to Edinburgh. I definitely want to go to Edinburgh. I have to see what happens, because I have a friend's wedding at the end of February I have to talk about. If you really enjoyed my this episode and you enjoy my podcast, please hit the like button and the subscribe button, and if you really like everything, hit the notifications so that you get a notification when I am uploading. So hope you have a good time wherever you are, whatever time it is. I don't really know. I always want to say have a good weekend, but I upload on Monday. It's not weekend. The weekend's over. I hope you had a good weekend. Let's put it that way. Hope you had a good weekend and enjoy. Happy knitting.